Thank you, French. Much shalom greetings to you all. I hope you had a fantastical, rejoicing and dancing holiday, honoring and celebrating the great book of instruction. In the midst of the holiday, I had occasion to meet with a scientific colleague of mine. He's one of the most spiritual people I know, and he often says things not usually realizing the impact his words may have. You know, with whoever he's there, they just strike you in ways that clarify for whoever he is talking to. And I noticed it caused me to think of things a little differently. We're talking about how we manifest all the events in our lives, good events, bad events, and how we often do not know the reason for things at the times that they happen or how we will necessarily resolve them, but how we believe, how we know, how we have faith that we can control the events of our lives by the things we think and the intent we produce, and that will say, I don't know how I'm going to fix this, but I know that I will fix it. And as we talked about having faith. That instead of taking control over things, having faith allowed us to give up the attempt at control and to put things in the hands of God. Something so many are so afraid to do. Faith. Belief not based on things seen, not based on proof. Yes, it is difficult. And it's probably one of the biggest choices you may make in life, having faith. And we're going to be reading about a whole series of people who, without question, gave into faith. So you may want to give it a throw. You may change the conditions of your life by having a little more faith. In fact, all religious practice is based on some element of faith. And whether you're religious or not, of deep faith or of no faith, you actually do have some element of faith. It may only be in the inherent goodness of man. Put that to his faith, and that's an awful lot of faith. Well, my friends, this is a big week. It's a week of beginnings. We finish the Torah and we begin the book of instruction again. The circle of life goes round and round. And I'm going to be going away in a few days for a week or two. And I'll certainly take you all with me in the recess of my heart. After all, now I know the secret. There is nothing that I lack. If I give my love to you, you'll surely give it back. And it is that easy, friends. Give love, get love. And speaking of love, we're just a few days away from Ellen's birthday, so let us all the world over wish her the awesomest birthday of birthdays because she's so special. And even though, I tend to put this in for her almost every year, I think it is an appropriate song to choose. You say it's your birthday. It's my birthday too. You say it's your birthday. We're gonna have a good time. I'm glad it's your birthday. Happy birthday to you. Have a great birthday. I'll be thinking of you, and I hope you all heard the dogs wishing her a happy birthday too. Well, as they once said, and as we say, here we go again. Only this time the here we go again is to begin the rereading of the Bible, the book of instruction, the Torah. We end, we begin. You'll notice that the stories and the people who stand out are those who demonstrated faith. They allowed things to unfold as God determines, not as they think they control those events. In most cases, they had no control. And you really see that come home next week with Noah, alone, other than, of course, with all the animals in his family, adrift in a sealed box, perhaps the first real act of faith that we see in the Bible. Then you'll see it several times with Abraham. Go to a land, I'll tell you. Take the lad to a land, I'll show you. Both times, he put everything in faith. You'll see it with other patriarchs. You'll see it with Moses and with the people in general. Faith. And speaking of faith, this was a song that Bob Dylan and Tom Petty did for the Chabad Telethon back in 1986. And it was a song called Thank God. And it was a song really all about faith. You can hear I don't think there's too many recorded versions of it, but you could certainly get a sense of how Tom and Bob would have done it at that point in time. There's a world of pain and sorrow, filled with selfishness and greed. There remains that glory found to supply our every need. You can find it in the temple with a welcome on the door. But be sure to count your blessings before you ask for more. Thank God for every mountain and each sea. Thank God for every flower and every tree. Thank God for giving life to you and me, wherever you may be. Thank God. A song about faith, a song about having faith and belief in God. And of course, the welcome on the door of every temple and every home is the mezuzah, a sign that it is a house of faith. Let us all welcome Myra to our house, who's joining our community on the spiritual voyage of discovery. And I have faith that we can all help heal those in need of healing. Let's get together and send out goodwill, love, healing to those in need, as we call for healing for everyone. Renewal for any that you know in need of spirit. So let's all join together in hoping everyone everywhere gets the healing, feels the energy they need to feel, feels the love. And so for all in need of healing, remember, energy and spirit know no boundaries. And think of the names of the people that you know in need, or call it out, as we do this. Me, Sheberech, Avotenu, Makor HaBracha, Limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. The renewal of body, the renewal of spirit. Let us say, Amen. Misha Baruch, let us all have our spirits renewed. And I was speaking with one of my great mentors the other day, one I do not speak to enough, although we have many, many conversations just by thinking of each other. And we talked about a bunch of different things, as so often happens when you're catching up. We talked of family and the amazing travels he's been on, the new car he thought of getting and the one he did get, which I am looking forward to at some point of seeing and getting a ride in. I love getting a ride in people's new cars. And as is so often the case, I learn much, as I do from all of you when we talk. Now, he was telling me how he had his dreams manifested. Dreams he'd had when he was a kid came to fruition when he was an adult, out of the blue, without thinking about it. But the time was right, my friends. We set in motion events that we do not anticipate when they may come to fruition, when they may come to be, if they may even come to be. It was a great lesson and a great reminder that our intent creates the pathway to attainment. So thank you. Now, where do we begin with the beginning? The great cosmic tale of creation, so powerful, so awe-inspiring, but surprisingly it's over in the first two parshas of the Torah, packed with so much. And those first 11 chapters establish a connection between God and the entire universe. They depict the formation of a relationship between the Creator and all of the families of the earth. And this relationship will remain as the crucial background to the story of Israel that will take up the rest of the Torah. Friends, even in this week's opening parsha, where do you begin? Genesis 1 is the 6 days of creation and the Sabbath, the one day set apart, hallowed by God because he ceased. Genesis 2 is the second account of the creation and the fascinating juxtaposition of the two different names of God, Yahweh, Elohim. Much more anthropomorphic, and the description of a God who does not summon things into being from a lofty distance through the mere action of divine speech, but works as a craftsman fashioning And so we have the Hebrew word yatzir, form, instead of bara, create. The third world in the four worlds of creation, blowing life breath into nostrils and building a woman from a rib. And this represents the first great example of editing in the Bible. Put different pieces by different writers together. Now, you do not think that way if you believe Moses wrote the whole thing, because you don't necessarily see it as different pieces fused into one. And if you're reading it in translation, you don't always catch it. Genesis 3. The story of the Garden of Eden and what is considered the first sin and its punishment. Genesis 4. The introduction of parental favoritism and sibling rivalry, leading to the first murder, of course. Cain murders Abel and the land is polluted. Genesis 4:17, the beginning of the story of civilization. Genesis 5, the first genealogy. Adam's descendants to Noah and his sons. Genesis 6, the wickedness of humankind, and with it God's regret that he made them, and the tale of the Nephilim that we have talked about, we'll talk about again. Now, every year, all of that is just in the first parsha of the book. So every year I like to pick something different. It could be the fact the Bible begins by referring to God in the plural, Elohim, the gods. Let us make a human in our image, according to our likeness. Now, it could be, what does in the image of God actually mean? Is it physical, spiritual, intellectual? And we will talk a little bit about that. It could be that creation had already taken place at some point in the past, and we're now standing, looking at a fluid mass that was shapeless and formless. Tohu and bohu. And they mean virtually the same thing. Now, it could be, and I've spoken of, the concept of separation and the unfolding and creating space between things. It could be, and I've also spoken of, the unfolding of the order of creation and how it lays out on the tree of life, which I will be giving a seminar on later this year. It could be that we witnessed the first murder early on and have not progressed very far since. It could be that this section actually gives us the origins or explanations for over a dozen things, and that's hardly ever talked about. It could be that Eve was the first and only person to call God by his name until Moses. Or maybe it could be that on that first day, God created light and separated day from night, but he didn't create the sun and the moon until like days later, the fourth day. So where did the first light come from? All of those, my friends, are great topics. It's all right there in the first week. You can even pick how the opening of the Bible reflects our most basic and repeated day-to-day function. And no, whatever you're thinking, that's not it. It is choice. We spend our lives in a whirlwind of choice. And what an incredible first choice. The tree of life or the tree of knowledge of good and bad. Choosing is an essential part of being human. We can choose good, which is the way of life, or bad, which results in death. We can choose faith or unbelief. We choose between the two trees countless times every day. Now, another thing almost never talked about, but what comes up at different times during the year, is the amazing list of 10 unexplainable things which were created on the eve of Shabbat in that first week at twilight. And these include the mouth of the earth where it swallowed Korach, the mouth of the well of Miriam that provided water for the Israelites in the desert, the talking ability of Balaam's ass, the rainbow, the manna, Moses' staff, the shamir that cut the stones of the altar in the Holy Temple, and the writing, the inscription in the tablets of the Ten Commandments. These all come from chapter 5, verse 6 of the Ethics of the Fathers, the Pirkei Avot, which is Mishnah-based ethical teachings. Some of the earliest Mishnah teachings, and they can be read hand in hand with the Torah to see the kind of discussions early rabbis and sages had about the Torah. And I encourage everybody to take a look and read it. If you haven't, take a look at the Pirkei Avot. It's really quite incredible. Now, instead of these, this year, I'm going to talk about not something said, but something not said. And that comes when we meet the serpent, and how what Adam and Eve say God said and what God actually said are not the same thing when they're talking to the serpent. Pardon me. And so this becomes the first example of adding. Now Eve says in Genesis 3:3, "But of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, God said, you shall not eat of it, and you shall not touch it, lest you die." Okay, that's what they said. So what did God actually say? Well, just like a few lines earlier in Genesis 2:16. "And Yahweh Elohim commanded the human, saying, you may eat from every tree of the garden, but from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, you shall not eat from it, because in the day you eat from it, you'll die." Now we know that's from the second creation story. How? Because of the names used. Both names are used. But notice, friends, God never once said not to touch it, just not to eat from that tree. So Eve has added. She added something that wasn't there. Now Rashi suggested, based on this dialogue, that if one starts out by adding to a command, one may come to take away from it in the end. Now we should also note that this idea of not changing what is written is introduced here at the very beginning of the Torah because it's an essential principle that Moses pronounces twice near the end of the Torah, in Deuteronomy 4:2 and again in 13:1. "You shall not add to the thing that I command you, and you shall not take away from it." And here it is right at the very beginning. And so this points to a consideration we have to give concerning the human oral transmission of a divine command and how it actually comes across. So let's read on. Genesis 3:4. "And the snake said to the woman, you won't die, because God knows that in the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you'll be like God, knowing good and bad." Wow, you will be like God. What an incredibly powerful statement, my friends. Whatever is meant by creation in the image of God means that humans are understood to participate in the divine in some way that animals do not. Now, of course, I personally think animals are pretty divine, but only humans would aspire to the divine. And that is the basis of the snake's appeal to humans here. And that can be summed up in one word, my friends: ego. The great fall of man, and something that there's a holiday to celebrate us getting rid of. And while translations do not express it, the biblical Hebrew very clearly points out that the snake is speaking in the plural you, suggesting both Adam and Eve were there. And then when confronted by God, the man shifts the blame very quickly, I might add. God pounces like an attorney who's caught a witness in a stupid mistake on the stand. "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree?" To which the man replies, "The woman whom you placed with me, she gave me from the tree and I ate." Talk about shirking responsibility. He threw her under the bus immediately, and then he even threw it back on God. It was God's fault because God created her. And we've been apologizing ever since. So being quick thinking and realizing the possibilities. Genesis 3:22. "And Yahweh Elohim said," here, "the human has become like one of us, to know good and bad. And now in case he'll put out his hand and take from the tree of life as well, and eat and live forever, he's got to do something about it." Well, folks, we got evicted from paradise. And mankind used its first choice and made the greatest mistake in history. They don't first eat from the tree of life and attain immortality. No. They eat from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, and what's the first super deep, profound knowledge that comes to them? Is it the secret of the universe? No. It's that they are naked and therefore should be ashamed, and we have carried that shame with us ever since. Friends, this is a fantastic place to start our studies of the Torah. But I will warn you that this is often translated as knowledge of good and evil, because the Hebrew word can mean both, but good and bad captures it much better. Evil suggests that this is strictly moral knowledge, but the Hebrew word ra has a much wider range of meaning than that. It may mean knowledge of what is morally good and bad, or it may mean qualities of good and bad in all realms. Morality, aesthetics, utility, pleasure, pain may mean that things are good or bad in themselves. And then when one eats from the tree, one acquires the ability to see these qualities. Or it may mean that when one eats from the tree, one acquires the ability to make judgments of good and bad. I cannot help but think that the meaning was clear to the ancient reader who knew the immediate connotations of the words. It is simply not as clear to us. The world is sacred, my friends, and so is everything in it. Express your gratitude, light a candle, make a wish, celebrate your life and the lives of those you love. Share your feelings with them. Live free, be free, honor your freedom. Be well, be happy, be blessed. Keep your egos in check. Share and honor the light, and all who live in the light and continue to shine. Continue to send everybody you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone, and end to terror and hatred. Remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together, we celebrate each other, we love each other. We share this ride together, men and women equally. Let us send out love, not fear. Send out peace, harmony, good healing to all who need it. And please do learn to forgive and learn to love. Open your hearts. Honor the relationships of your lives. Tell those you love that you love them. Take advantage of the time you have with them. Enjoy yourselves. We take the twists and turns and the patterns that weave through the fabric of our lives in our effort to grow, to learn, to be, to love. So please do love. Send healing, goodwill, and love to all who need it. Share your holiness. Now, bless you all. Have a fantastic week. A week of love and light, a week of beginnings, a week of peace and healing for you to honor the people of your life and honor the journey you were on and honor yourselves. And friends, keep your eyes open to what you may not be seeing and keep your ears open and listen to the world around you. And remember, this is a book that is organic. The lessons, the laws, the ethics, the rituals, they change with the times. It's how it stays current, new, relevant, meaningful, and continues to provide us with insight, with answers. Now remember, we set in motion all that happens in our lives. Our intentions, our cause, our effect, everything is linked. And as I've said, you always have time to forgive and to be forgiven. You have that knowledge of what is good and what is bad. So acknowledge what you've done wrong to yourself, to God, and to any person you've wronged. Then ask forgiveness. And do so with sincerity, accountability, and vulnerability. And since we're going to be talking about faith and thanking God, I'm going to do one more song for you. This is a song of gratitude, exploring spirituality. And the writer said that the message was to say thank you to God, or whatever you choose to call him or her, for whatever happens. That's a direct quote, and it's a song about having faith in God, and it's something we can all give a little more thought to. And here is a fun fact for you. This was the first song for which Eric Clapton wrote all the lyrics, and we recently read its title in Deuteronomy 12:7. There you shall eat in the presence of the Lord. I have finally found a place to live, just like I never could before. I know that I don't have much to give, but I can open any door. Everybody knows the secret. Everybody knows the score. Yeah. I have finally found a place to live in the presence of the Lord. Do not stop your journey. Do not stop moving towards your promised land. It is in sight. Keep on dreaming, keep on being, keep on shining, keep teaching, keep spreading your holiness. Do not follow fear. Now, thank you all for joining me, for participating, for sharing your lives, your love, your time with me. I do appreciate it. I love that you all spent this time journeying through the Torah with me, and you're going to do it again. So thank you for staying with it. I love you all. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Be well until then. Shabbat shalom and blessings to you all. Take care. Bye.